Hello all. Wanted to kind of continue on with the theme of the extreme heat that the planet is seeing right now and why it's so horrible what's coming in the future if we don't do something. Let me just show you. Let me just try and explain it to you over on the board. So perihelion or helion isn't important. It just means the closest approach that the sun and earth get to each other. So the orbit of planet Earth is not circular. It's more like this in an extreme. That's very extreme, but just to show you. Sun here, Earth here. Right now, the Earth is around here, very close to the sun. But, so that happens around July the 4th to the 6th, something like that. Orbits are not exact because of all the other things interacting with it. So this is just general. So the Earth gets as close to the sun as it ever will on July 4th, summer, on the northern hemisphere. But there's another issue on January 3rd of each year. The Earth isn't here anymore, or here, it's over here. That's the farthest distance there is. That's the name of it here. There's another orbit, the sun here, and there's this super elliptical orbit that the Earth takes millions or thousands of years. Just depends on the orbiting. But the Earth even gets further away, about 3 million more miles. So the closest approach is 3.1 million miles from Earth, or 5 million kilometers. But there's another time when it gets an additional 3 million miles or 5 million kilometers away from the sun. So it ends up being a lot, and we end up with an icy Earth full of glaciers. It's even gone so far out as to become an iceberg or an ice cube Earth, where the entire globe is gone into glaciation. So why am I bringing this up? Well, at this point, the planet on the long-term scale is getting very close to the long point over here. In other words, we're getting pretty close to glaciation time. But because of increased CO2, methane, and other greenhouse gases, we're not cooling down. We're still warming up. Scientists say that once we reach this point here, it won't make any difference. The planet is still going to go into overheat. But the really bad news is several thousand years in advance, when the Earth becomes here and the distance becomes closer and closer, compounded with climate change. What a nightmare the future has. But that's thousands of years away still. So we have plenty of time to fix the problem that the planet is now in, overheating. I wanted to show you a fix that has been talked about for years. It's very simple, very easy, very doable. The complication comes in the unknowns. Well, instead of fixing climate change with chemicals in the ocean to turn the ocean into a big sea of green to suck up all the CO2, but the problem is, as soon as those microbes die, there's a good chance that all that CO2 will be just released back into the air, and then you've got a big polluted, messy ocean that stinks and it has no life in it because you starved it of oxygen. I have a much better fix, and it's been a fix for some time. It's just that it's not talked about much. Let's go over to the board. So, we as humans have to figure out how to get rid of all this CO2 and methane and other greenhouse gases. My personal favorite is to plant lots of trees. At the same time, we're planting our forests back on planet Earth and changing our agriculture from outside to inside in the cities, instead of taking up precious land that we need to plant forest shrublands and grasslands. Why do we need those? That will soak up all this extra CO2. And of course this has to happen after we stop burning fossil fuels. Now, fixes. What do we do in the near time? Because this heat from the sun is continuously bombarding the earth. The earth is continuously overheating every day. This is a very good fix. It's been around for some time. It has to do with NASA. They're going to have to use rocketry and some very high-tech equipment such as blankets and that sort of thing. Shields from heat. And what you do is you put up shields. And what these look like are just like this. And what they do is they unfold when they get into space. So in other words, they're all folded up. They unfold. The diameter is as big as we can get it. This is a reflector. Now, we already do this in space. We put up these shields all the time to protect the spacecraft from the sun for experimentations. In fact, one of the newest space telescopes will use this very technology. So it's already around. Nothing new. Here's what has to be done. Lots of shields. Closer to the sun, because that will block the sun from getting to the earth. But you want to leave some holes, so you don't need to saturate it. Now you say, why don't we put these around the earth? Well, the reason is you'd need a ton of them all the way around the earth. Not only that way, but this way as well. This way, you put a small group of them, which then blocks the sun's rays from getting to the earth. Would you notice this if you were on Earth? No, you wouldn't. There aren't enough to block enough visible light to stop the earth looking like it normally does. If you looked up towards the sun, would you see these? Absolutely not. These are very tiny in comparison. Plus the brightness of the sun, you'd never see them. But they might be able to reduce the incoming energy enough to drop the temperatures 5 to 10 degrees to give time for the trees and the plants and the oceans to absorb all that excess CO2. Easy fix, trillions of dollars to do. Gotta get some colleges for space going. We've got to modernize, but this is a fix that is doable, proven. There is some downside to this. You have to aim it so that it only hits on the summer side of the planet and not the winter side. You don't want to get these winters so cold that you put the planet into some kind of back and forth kind of thing between the hot and the cold. So you've got to make sure you only cool down the summer and not the winter. Sounds pretty easy. Takes years, lots of education, college, engineering. Can be done. We can get through this. You know, that's just one fix. There's a whole bunch of other fixes that are natural that you can use to cool the earth just enough to allow the CO2 and the methane to be absorbed. That's all it takes. We don't need to panic and say it's impossible, we're all dying in a few months or a few years. If that were to happen, it's because humans weren't smart enough to fix the problem. That's where the problem is. We can't get from the solution to the fix. For some reason, we have mental blockage that says can't be done. And in my lifetime, I have been bombarded by can't be done. And time again, I find a way it can be. Just like this. Pretty simple, pretty easy, going to take a lot of money, a lot of time, and we're just barely going to make it. But if we ignore the problem much longer, then we are screwed. And it's humanity's own fault for giving up so soon. So on another subject of the environment and overheating, we'll have to go to the board. And I wanted to show you why humans are so susceptible to the extreme heats, which doesn't seem like that extreme at all, but it is. So, up in Montreal in Canada, a lot of people died this summer because of overheating. Why did they die with such low temp 80s and 90s during the day? It was because the nighttime temperatures are getting hotter. When the body can't get below, let's say 87 degrees, it can't keep itself cool. It's a lot of work to cool itself off, a lot of sweating, use a lot of water, and eventually your body just gets tired and sort of starts to give up. That's called heat stroke. But here's how it works. When you go into a heat wave, the first couple days, the days are miserable, you feel uncomfortable, but the nights are all right. But as soon as the heat wave gets where the nighttime temperatures stay above 70s, and you've got hundreds during the day, you're into the danger zone. Very high temperatures consistently, no cool-off periods. It's good to sleep below 70 at night to keep your body in perfect shape. Even colder than that is really, I really like 60s and 50s at night. So as the days go on and the heat wave continues, you get hotter and hotter nights and hotter days, and of course that just leads to real trouble and you end up with death. So it's the amount of high temperature nights that cause the problem, not necessarily how much temperature there is during the day. It's the combination. And the hotter the nights get, let's have a vegetarian vegan update class. Today we're going to go ahead and talk about essential nutrients. Just a couple, maybe even just one, really. So down in the description you'll see a link to the world's healthiest foods. Click on that. Now once that comes up, you'll want to scroll down and look to the right here, this right column. You will find essential nutrients. That's where we're going today. You can also find that link down in the description area. Click on that link in either places, it'll take you to the same page. Now here are the essential nutrients that you need. Some of these are very difficult for vegans and some vegetarians to get. That is why I go vegetarian instead of vegan. These particular nutrients are difficult to find in only vegetables, fruits, beans, potatoes, legumes, and all that. It's only pretty much found in animal products. That is, of course, vitamin B12, which is so important in our body. We recycle all the vitamin B12, but we do lose it. Both when we bleed vitamin 12, so we need to have a daily dose of vitamin B12, or at least some increases in that vitamin day by day. So here is a chart that shows some of the places in the food chain, in the food web, you can find vitamin B12. As you see, there's not a whole lot of choices. Yogurt, Crimea mushrooms, cow's milk, eggs, and cheese. That's why I eat some of that stuff, because I do need my vitamin B12, just as everybody does. And getting it without these in your system, you're down to basically mushrooms to get your vitamin B12. What's wrong with that, you say? Well, vitamin B12 is on the mushrooms because there's a light fungus on the mushrooms, and that's where vitamin B12 is made from funguses. So the more fungus you eat, the more chances are you can get some quality vitamin B12 without ever eating a single piece of meat. But it's very small amount on those mushrooms, so you need to increase it by a little bit of dairy, a little bit of eggs, and a little bit of cheese. I use cheese sort of on my pasta, that sort of thing. I bring it down to a small cube per week. Eggs maybe 4 a month, and then a milk of some sort, maybe cow's milk, cream, something, butter. All that has some vitamin B12 in it also. A little bit each week isn't going to hurt you, and is only going to increase your vitamin B12. So there's just one more thing I wanted to show in this video of why we go vegan or vegetarian. Let's go back over the board. So, when you eat meat, which is not a fiber, what happens in the digestive system is that piece of meat joins other things that you ate and becomes like a ball, a hard rock ball. The way your body digests is this ball, or this food, goes back and forth. It does this. Now when it does this by muscular contraction that you don't even know it's happening, the nutrients in this hit the walls and are absorbed into the bloodstream. When your food does this, it just passes from one chamber to another, to another, to another, and stays a tight ball. And not much nutrition gets out of that into your bloodstream. When you eat fiber, which is lots of greens, vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains, your food does this. It stays in fibrous pieces. And so when the pieces all come together and hit the walls, you get all this nutrition each time that all these individual pieces hit the walls and absorb the food. That is another reason you want to go vegetarian, is because you get more nutrition out of your food. And you don't have to eat as much. You don't feel hungry. And you control your weight. And of course, another reason we go vegetarian vegan is to help the planet. We're not surrounding ourselves with beef cattle, sheep, pig farms, blood ponds out in Georgia. Just ask Georgians what they think of these new pig farms. Vegetarian farms can be grown indoors, vertically in the cities, completely organic, bug-free. Who could ask for more? The technology's already there. It's already being done. I personally eat some of that every day. Already here. You don't need food from outside. The difficulties? Potatoes and grains. That's going to take the technology to move inside. That's where you're going to have to spend some time, money, college, engineering. But it is all going to be done, or we're not going to make it. So I definitely do appreciate all the ups and downs and the new subscribers and all the comments on the last two videos. They've been just excellent. I appreciate all the enthusiasm about converting over to vegetarianism, veganism. Let me know what you think. What's your advice? What do you think about what I've been talking about? Can you add something to it? Have at it. I love it. Love comments. Until next time.